All right, good morning. My name is Brianna Yoakum. I'm currently the accreditation coordinator for Washington Alliance for Quality Recovery Residences, and I'm joined here by Blair Gaston, and she's going to be presenting our webinar today on our Private Landlord Toolkit, a guide to creating successful partnerships with landlords. So we're really excited to share this information with you. And feel free, if you have any questions, to put it in the chat. We'll also put a link to the actual toolkit that's on our website in the chat as well, so you can follow along. You will have access to the slides as well as the recording of this for a resource for you guys as well. And with that, I'll hand it off to Blair.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on the Private Landlord Toolkit. As Bree said, and thank you for the introduction, I'm Blair Gaston. I'm the Marketing and Engagement Coordinator for WAQRR. I also do a little bit of reporting for them as well. And today I'm going to share about what WAQRR does in the coming slides for those of you who might be attending a WAQRR hosted webinar for the first time. So I had the pleasure of putting together the Private Landlord Toolkit for WAQRR in partnership with the Healthcare Authority of Washington State. However, I'm no expert in the field of recovery residences, but I worked closely with recovery housing operators like Seasons Housing and Kate's House Foundation to develop this toolkit. And so I'm really excited to share the finished project with you guys today. As Bree mentioned, if you do have any questions, you can put them in the chat. And if I don't see them, Bree or Sarah, you could totally interrupt and let me know what's going on so we can get the questions answered. So according to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, individuals who live in recovery residences have a higher likelihood of achieving and maintaining sobriety. However, there is a shortage of recovery residences in Washington State, and that's why we developed this Private Landlord Toolkit. This toolkit assists those in the process of reaching out to and cultivating relationships with landlords about recovery residences. Do we have any prospective recovery residence operators in here, or anyone that is currently a WAQRR accredited recovery residence? If you are, so you got the chat popping. You can reach out. Also in the chat, you'll find the link to the Private Landlord Toolkit. So you can go ahead and download that from there. So with this toolkit, I broke it up into 4 sections. Section 1 is approaching landlords. Section 2 is recruiting and relationships. Section 3, we're going to talk about working together. And then section 4 is all the resources and appendages, or appendix. Let's start things off by establishing some background information. First of all, the social model of recovery is foundational to all recovery residences. It's guiding the domains and principles of accredited recovery environments and distinguishing them from other shared living environments. The social model of recovery emphasizes experiential mental knowledge gained through recovery experience and residents supporting each other through giving and receiving help. The concept of a psychological sense of community derived from the community psychology is also important, highlighting the feelings of connectedness and group membership among community members. These principles contribute to a supportable and empowering environment for residents in recovery, and ultimately helping them to maintain sobriety and then transition back into independent living. Since the 1970s, many people in recovery have established recovery housing type residential environments that provide people in recovery from SUD a safe place for that is drug and alcohol free, safe place to live. These homes, they encourage personal responsibility and self-sufficiency and encourage residents to maintain their sobriety. And residents are actively participating in their recovery, and they have access to various support services and resources. Recovery housing allows for continued time in recovery in a supportive environment following their effective treatment options for SUD, which, if you're not familiar with that, is substance use disorder. Living in a community in sober housing or recovery housing with support from others in recovery is considered a critical component of success. The public and policymakers have become more aware of the devastating effects and the costs of SUD in the United States over the recent years. Recovery housing is varied in quality and options for care. And so in 2011, a group of sober housing operators, they came up with a code of ethics for recovery homes. This is known as NAR, the National Alliance for Recovery Residences. And they established that national standard. This standard defines the levels of care in recovery-oriented housing and services, and then it defines 4 categories, which we are commonly referred to as the levels of care or the levels of support. The NAR standard guide, it's certifying effective recovery residences and incorporates the social model of recovery with the levels of support in the house. WAQRR is the Washington affiliate of NAR and providing a network of safe, effective, and high-quality recovery residence operators for individuals recovering from SUD. Our mission includes maintaining quality standards, certifying and publicizing recovery residences, like on our registry, recoveryhousinglaw.org. So the link there. And then we also are interfacing with neighborhoods, governments, and other agencies, and providing resources and trainings for recovery operators or recovery residence operators. There are several benefits of WAQRR accreditation to recovery housing operators. WAQRR accreditation would get your level 2 residence on the state registry. And you're maybe wondering, why would a recovery housing operator wanted to be listed on the state registry or on your registry? The registry will allow recovery residence operators to apply for funds from operating and capital revolving loans. And future funding opportunities may include a requirement to be on the registry, similar to one that we was announced recently by the Department of Commerce. If you have questions about that, you can email me and I'll send you some information. So substitute House Bill 1528. This was passed in Washington State in 2019. It recognizes substance use disorder as a disease that impacts families and society and emphasizes the importance of a system of care that includes prevention, treatment, and recovery services. Access to quality recovery housing is crucial for helping individuals remain in recovery from SUD beyond their treatment. It also benefits both individuals and their communities. So this act addresses the quality of recovery housing in the state of Washington by recognizing the potential for fraudulent and unethical recovery residence operators, in addition to the lack of affordable housing nationwide. House Bill 1528 went into effect January 1st, 2023, and it included a provision that required all SUD providers that when they're referring clients to recovery housing, they can only refer housing listed on the HCA website for recovery housing. This registry includes Oxford houses, and then also WAQRR accredited recovery residences. We're gonna hop into section 1 here now that we got all that background information out of the way. So if you are also following along with the toolkit that we posted the link to in the chat, but it's also on the WAQRR website, just click on the menu and you'll see Private Landlord Toolkit. But if you're following along, this starts on page 7. In this section, we'll explore landlord engagement, community outreach, a coordinated approach, educating landlords, and then conducting a landlord survey. And any of the resources that are in this section or the following sections They'll all be available to you at the end of this presentation. We'll send you out a link to the slides, the recording, the Private Landlord Toolkit, and then also ask you a couple follow-up questions just to see how you like this presentation today. Landlord engagement. This means finding and recruiting, working with, and retaining landlords. It requires careful planning and preparation, which takes time. Recovery housing operators should develop a landlord engagement strategy before even recruiting participants into the program. Recovery housing operators should develop, oh, sorry. I was letting someone into this chat or into our webinar and I missed the spot here. So we're going to, you want to start the process early on when it comes to landlord engagement. You're going to want to be patient and consider the function of this as like a long-term investment, and it takes time to pay off. But if you just start by gathering information about the local context that your program is going to be operating in, think about things like, are there unique local assets and opportunities that might benefit the program? And then you also want to reflect on the challenges and barriers. When resources are limited, it helps to find creative ways to work with others and access existing resources and information in the community. You can meet with as many local agencies as possible to tell them about recovery residences, and you can discuss potential opportunities to work together. You're going to want to develop these strong working relationships and partnerships with these key agencies. Together, you can create protocols that outline respective roles that each partner will play, and then make sure that we're holding regular meetings on an ongoing basis. At those meetings, you can discuss issues as they arise, but that'll just keep you guys together and on the same page. Landlords can find it confusing when working with multiple recovery residences simultaneously. So a coordinated approach to landlord engagement can be beneficial, especially in larger communities with multiple recovery residences. A coordinated approach may involve sharing one or more housing coordinator staff positions among the multiple recovery residences, standardized levels of service across multiple programs, also community-wide training and capacity building events, regular interagency meetings to discuss local issues and challenging cases, and a shared mitigation fund. We're probably wondering who else can play a critical role in landlord engagement. So housing operators, they need support in developing a landlord engagement strategy, and the local government, they play an essential role, essential supporting role. Other community organizations like local community advisory boards, community entities, and like coalitions to end homelessness, they can also contribute significantly as well. But your communities, they need a backbone organization that adopts an asset-based community development approach to lead from the side, so to say, and make sure that everyone comes together to determine the best ways to move forward on these common issues. The city or community agencies can help with landlord engagement by incentivizing property tax breaks. They can lower processing fees and even fast tracking housing proposals to landlords and property developers who agree to rent units to WAQRR accredited operators. Regulating property standards, meaning ensuring high quality housing is maintained citywide, regularly inspecting rooming houses, and actively targeting slumlords. We can also make sure that elected officials not only know about the program, but that they can also deliver a consistent message, which lends credibility to the cause. We can also develop a service map that tracks a typical user through the system to identify any gaps or inefficiencies or tensions in the design as well as assets and strengths. And then you can produce a landscape map or like a model of what you expect to see. And then developing proposals to apply for additional funding. Community agencies can help with that, as well as conducting research and identifying the best practices that are used in other communities. City and community agencies can help by providing database support, also building community capacity by offering trainings and workshops to the staff in the sector, conducting needs assessments, successful measurement program evaluation, and fidelity assessments, helping facilitate events for landlords such as forums or information events, hosting media events to promote the Recovery Residence Program and raise awareness, offering recognition to landlords who are participating in the program, like creating an annual award and then presenting that to an excellent landlord. Plus, that looks really good on social media as well. And then before we get into section 2, I'm going to check the chat here. And it looks like we're good. If anyone had any questions. Yes, we're good. We got the toolkit in there. Okay, here we go. Section 2 is going to teach you how to identify landlords for your program. So we're going to talk about the types of landlords to target, the types of assurances landlords are looking for, and then just how to maintain those relationships, and also how to approach different types of landlords and the landlords of different size. Establishing a landlord advisory group in your community is not only an excellent way to get to know some of the landlords in your community, but it'll also be a way for you to introduce them to your program. You can use the group to discuss landlords' fears about accepting your clients and what it would take to get them to change their minds. You can ask them for suggestions concerning like the best way to recruit landlords as they become more familiar with your organization. They also might be willing to help promote your program or introduce you to other landlords and serve as like they could be your references, for example. In the cultivating landlord process, you want to have really good marketing materials. Starting off, like your website is essential. I like to use kateshousefoundation.org as an example of a website. So if you'd like to check that out, if you just click on website link, you can check theirs out. But you're also going to want to have handouts and brochures that describe your services, and those are like pretty much vital to the success, is just being able to show people what you're about physically, you know. You're also going to want to attend meetings of your local landlord organizations. Landlord organizations or rental housing associations, they're going to help keep landlords informed of their rights and responsibilities. So you can contact your local organization and attend a meeting. And if you're going to do that, I would definitely be prepared. Make a short presentation on your program. Bring some brochures or other marketing materials to leave behind. And another thing, you can also bring like one of your residents or a success story, because them being able to tell and explain the impact that the program has had on their life is going to resonate more with landlords and people attending the meeting. Another thing that you can do is conduct a landlord survey. So this is just something that you're going to use to gather more information about local landlords' needs and their wants, and it'll help develop a targeted landlord engagement strategy by identifying strengths, challenges, and opportunities by asking landlords in the community to participate in the survey. So now let's get into the landlord size. So this is just kind of we gathered this information from talking to a lot of recovery residence operators, and this is the consensus that we've come up with. Targeting medium-sized landlords may offer the most excellent chance at success. So there are advantages of working with small landlords as well. Smaller landlords are like 1 to 4 units. They're more risk adverse and they can quickly address turnover and fill vacancies. And then there are some challenges of working with larger property management firms. Large property management firms have more units and they have strict screening processes and less autonomy. But at the end of the day, work with whoever is interested with you. If it's a small landlord or large or medium, if they're interested and willing to, I would definitely take them up on that. So how do we build our relationships with landlords? Let's divide and conquer. So if you're located in a large city and you have more than one housing advocate on staff, consider assigning that staff to specific neighborhoods or regions. Allow them to focus on their efforts to get to know particular communities and the landlords within those neighborhoods. Dividing responsibilities based on geography leads to collaboration and teamwork among advocates. They're going to have to rely on one another for information and leads. And landlords also, they prefer having one primary contact instead of getting repeated calls from other staff within the same organization. So if you just appoint someone to handle the landlord in that area, we found a lot of success with that. You also want to screen your clients appropriately. The long-term success of your organization depends on your ability to maintain a good reputation. So if you have one problem tenant or an instance where you don't follow up as promised, it'll probably discourage a landlord from working with you again. And as a result, it's critical that your agency properly screens clients. Make sure that your clients are in fact housing ready and that they do have that ability to maintain their housing. You also want to think like a salesperson. It may sound corny, but as a recovery housing advocate, you have to sell your program and your clients to landlords. You need to be the one that's emphasizing the benefits that landlords are going to receive from partnering with you. If landlords are concerned about the risks involved with renting to your clients, remind them that they take a chance with any tenant, but your program mediates those risks. Explain services to the participant that the staff will be available if any problem arises, and then appeal to the human or the emotional side of the landlord. Express how your clients work really hard overcoming their past and to improve their circumstances, because the landlords are going to have it'll be easier for landlords to relate to your clients better, by touching that emotional side of them. Most landlords, they know someone with a relative, a friend, or a coworker who struggled with alcohol or drugs, even mental illness or a sudden health crisis, or losing their job unexpectedly in a layoff, or even domestic abuse. These are the same issues in which your clients struggle. So remind landlords that they have the opportunity to improve the quality of life for others. We also have a landlord benefits checklist that you can go through for some ideas. You can download that now or later. It's in the toolkit. You also, I can't stress this enough, but you want to be honest. Be clear and forthright with landlords regarding whom you are housing. Emphasize your clients are working hard to change their lives and that your program supports their growth and development. Never hide the fact from your landlord, because they will find out, and violating your lease, it's going to damage your organization's reputation. You also want to encourage your clients to think about why they had the problems and what they're doing differently to prevent the issue from happening again. some landlords have said that they're more willing to give someone a second chance if the person takes responsibility for their actions and can show and demonstrate that they have changed. So be strategic about your placements. Consider placing your higher risk clients with landlords with fewer units, because one problem situation can be enough to deter a landlord from working with your program again. And you don't want a damaged relationship with your largest customers, meaning landlords with the most units. You want to remain neutral, because you want to remember landlords are your customers too. If a problem arises between your client and their landlord, you must remain neutral and work to resolve the problem efficiently between the two of them and effectively. If landlords view you as a tenant advocate as opposed to an intermediary, they're going to be less willing to work with you. And on the other hand, it's okay to have expectations of landlords. Your clients have the right to expect service equal to those provided to other residents, like routine maintenance and prompt repairs and courteous service. So it's vital to ensure landlords follow through on their responsibilities as well. And then, as we all need to do this, not just in recovery residence, but in life, practice patience. Relationships take time to build. You want to continue to nurture relationships regardless of whether a landlord initially is interested in your program or not. Because a landlord might come around over time after, excuse me, after getting to know your organization, because word is going to get around. And so helping expand your network and building relationships with other landlords is going to be extremely helpful to the success of your program and relationships. And now that we've found our ideal landlords, it's time to call them up and have a conversation. So this is a script that, if you're like an introvert and it's hard to find the words of what you want to say, you can use something like this. One of our recovery residence operators, Sherry Candelario, she uses this exact script word for word when she's calling landlords. So it just says, I'm a housing provider working with veterans, people who need housing, and people in recovery. And we can provide above average rent for your home. I have had experience for however many number of years, and I follow the national standards for recovery residences. So this is something that she uses, and she's had a lot of success with that. So I would encourage a conversation like this on your cold call when you do reach out to a landlord. In that conversation, if you're speaking to a corporate landlord, you can offer above their asking rate and provide commercial insurance. If speaking to an individual landlord, you should also offer above average rent. Offer to provide repairs and maintenance, but be specific to a dollar limit. If you're speaking to BHASOs and other nonprofit organizations, you can offer a home tour and explain what a level 2 MAT home entails. If you do want to know more about differing levels of cares and partnering with a behavioral health agency, come to our webinar tomorrow on CBHAs, another toolkit that we put out, which is available on our website. But everything that we've talked about are just generalizations from operators that we found works best when selecting a new location for recovery residents. So it's important to know some houses with homeowners associations, they're not going to be ideal for recovery residences. Most of them have strict rules to keep recovery residences from their neighborhoods. When selecting the right neighborhood, you should always think about public transportation and what is within 1 mile. Do they have you can also go on Redfin or Zillow and look up their transit score, and you want to see something higher than 50, but that'll tell you like, oh, public transportation is really good at this residence. Also, Walking distance to the grocery store is extremely helpful, and educational institutions, including technical schools. You can Uber or bus to clinics or medical care, stuff, something that's pretty close to all this stuff. And then also think about where your home office is or the property manager's office, because you want to be at least within 30 minutes of that if you need to get there for any emergency situations. I'm going to take a drink real quick. So when you're looking at like the right house, you want to find a single family home because that's like ideal. If it's 1 story, you want like a central kitchen and a dining room. If it's 2 story, you're looking for kitchen on 1 floor. That way you can even add a kitchenette if you need to. And balconies are really nice on 2-story homes also. You need multiple bathrooms, unfinished basements. They're easy to modify for more bedrooms too. Family rooms can be sectioned off. A second family room is great for group activities. Something that seats like 10 is helpful. Off-street parking is nice. Having a garage or a shed for storing belongings, that's going to decrease the clutter in the house, making it easier for people to live in the house in the community. A fenced backyard is really good. It provides like a visual block. A corner lot or a lot that has a lot of area between the adjacent homes, that's helpful as well. And then just to keep in mind, windows, they have to be large enough for a person to crawl out of, but you can always update those if necessary. And we just recommend double paned windows for energy efficiency. You want to have water efficient appliances. You might need to change them out, but just something to think about. Also, patios are nice for group activities and a garden area because a lot of people they're gonna need like new hobbies, and gardening is good, and it also provides like a getaway space. Before I get into section 3, want to see if we have any questions in the chat. Oh, thank you, Val. WAQRR.com. That's probably a lot easier than going on Zillow and Redfin. You won't get any spam emails. WAQRR.com will give you great info about walking to stores and public transit. I love that. Val, I might borrow that for the next time I present this. So thank you. On to section 3, working together. In this section, we're going to talk about establishing good relationships, the housing inspection checklist, and funding opportunities. Due to the high real estate costs in the US, utilizing rental homes is cost efficient. Establishing good relationships with landlords can be helpful for many reasons. Landlords can be hesitant to rent to recovery homes because of the stigma or negative reputations that they have, like property damage, or they're not going to pay their rent, or criminal activity. Landlords typically screen applicants to minimize risk, making it challenging for recovery homes to find rental properties. Recovery home providers, we have to overcome those negative perceptions and work with landlords to show that, my program is different and responsible. When individuals have multiple barriers, it's hard for them to find housing. Communities have found that when an agency acts as an intermediary, it provides support and conflict resolution. The landlords are more likely to accept our high-risk tenants. Quick response to landlord requests and following through on your promised services is also critical to maintaining positive relationships with landlords. You want to establishing good relationships with your landlords. It's going to have many benefits. Landlords could even hold a space for your clients or waive application fees. They might even agree to lock in rent payments for good tenants. And positive relationships with landlords, that can be the key that makes or breaks your program. This is a checklist that WAQRR uses that you can download if you're just looking at potential properties for recovery residences. You can use this as a reference when selecting the right property, or take it to a meeting with a potential landlord to see if they have a space that satisfies the requirements. On to funding. So we will dive into each of these. We have HARPS, Tenant Referral Program, Department of Corrections, GRE, and some other funding opportunities. HARPS is the Housing and Recovery Through Peer Services Program. HARPS helps reduce homelessness and supports people's recovery from mental health and substance use disorders. To use HARPS, individuals have to meet certain eligibility requirements. You could be eligible if you need to stay in a hospital for mental health reasons, or if you're at risk of going into the hospital for substance abuse. You could also be eligible if you're homeless or don't have a stable place to live. Then we jump into the Housing and Essential Needs Referral Program. So this is often called PEN. This provides access to essential needs items and potential rent assistance for low-income individuals that are unable to work for at least 90 days due to a physical and their mental incapacity. So DSHS and CSD, they're the ones that determine eligibility for the referral to the HEN program. And actual eligibility for rental assistance and essential needs items, that's determined by the Department of Commerce through a network of homeless and homeless prevention service providers.
Hey Blair,
If
I have a quick question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Just a
go
quick
ahead.
question in the chat. Someone was asking, how do you deal with the lack of frequent transit or the cost of on-demand transit at rural locations? I know this goes back to transportation, but
oh yeah, no, we're gonna hop into some of the rural landlord things in an upcoming section. However, I will readdress that when we get there.
okay, thank you.
So
Sorry for
the
interrupting.
transportation. No, we're good. That's what we need. Transportation costs. Okay, I got that one. But yeah, back to HEN. So if eligibility requirements for HEN are met, you might get help paying your rent or moving costs. And then they can also get things like soap, shampoos, cleaning supplies, and transportation help. So if maybe that could help even in the rural areas right there. Department of Corrections Graduated Reentry Program, GRE. GRE provides opportunities for incarcerated individuals to build skills through treatment programs, work, education, and cognitive behavioral interventions. The main goal of GRE is to help people who are getting out of jail or prison with their reentry plan. This means helping them connect to their community and the resources that they need to stay on track and be successful. With support and guidance, people can overcome the challenges they face after incarceration and build a better life for themselves. People who are part of GRE, they need to be aware of certain expectations, such as reporting their assigned correction specialist as directed, being available to that correction specialist. Also, they might need to follow the schedule for electronic monitoring as agreed upon, making sure to wear and charge the monitoring device as required. Also, taking part in programming and treatments that's directed by DOC, and continuing with any mental health, substance use, or other therapies or programs that they were assigned to before. Also, all their activities when they're out in the community are going to need to be verified. But by meeting these expectations, people can work towards a successful reentry and build a better future for themselves. The following links are either federal programs or just useful information on how to receive grants. Big one that is going on right now is a Department of Commerce grant that is something I would totally check out. But yeah, all of these links, everything in here is all available to you at the end of the presentation. You'll be able to click on things and go through it as you'd like. So section 4, this is where we're talking about rural landlords. But the things in this section can also be used in cities as well. Everything in here is pretty common in both higher population and lesser population areas. There are many challenges that people in rural communities face when it comes to accessing resources and support for SUD. Some of the challenges include lack of screening. People in rural communities, they might not have access to regular screening. And also due to close-knit communities, people in rural areas, they might feel uncomfortable seeking help due to the stigma surrounding these topics. And also it's like, it'll feel like a lack of privacy because they might know the person working there. Because in small towns like where I live, we know everybody and everybody knows you. Also in rural communities, there's limited access to healthcare and other resources. They might have limited options for treatment centers, even limited access to medication or mat services. And rural communities may also have limited resources for job opportunities as well. There could also be a lack of leadership and support for addressing SUD issues. And they may have limited substance-free spaces or activities, which can end up making it harder for people to find support and engage in healthy activities. A positive and supportive environment can greatly enhance recovery for all people with substance use disorder. These are some of the key elements of that environment. So the environment should be supportive and encourage recovery rather than stigmatize it. They should foster a sense of belonging and hope and connectedness, help them feel like they have a purpose rather than trying to force people to conform to a certain way of thinking. The recovery environment should provide education and support for people to apply recovery principles in their everyday lives and in their home. And communication, this should be respectful and not confrontational, with a focus on making requests rather than demands. People in charge, they should focus on creating a positive and supportive environment rather than trying to control or manage the behavior of the residents. If you grew up with helicopter parents, that's how I refer to that one, is someone just always on you, making sure you're breathing right, Creating a recovery-oriented environment means ensuring that the environment is obviously free of substances and behaviors that trigger or promote addiction or other negative behaviors. So this includes prohibiting alcohol, drugs, violence, slurs or innuendo, sexual conduct, stealing, and gambling. By creating an environment that is supportive, respectful, and integrated with the community, individuals in recovery are better able to achieve sustained recovery and then become valuable members of their communities. One big thing that's common in rural areas as well as some city suburbs is NIMBY, which is short for not in my backyard. That refers to when residents in a neighborhood oppose a new development or a change in occupancy, such as recovery housing or affordable housing for their local area. This phenomenon is often sensationalized and stigmatized in the media, and politicians, they've used it as a way to appear tough on crime. As a result, laws have been created that criminalize the symptoms of addiction, which marginalizes those with SUD as criminals. Jails and prisons and other institutions, they've been expanded to treat this symptom of a condition that they were never meant to handle, which has resulted in the mismanagement and misuse of those facilities. So these assumptions are often unfounded and they stem from misconceptions and stigma surrounding substance use disorders and those in recovery. Residents of recovery housing are typically highly motivated to maintain their sobriety, and they want to contribute positively to their communities. A lot of people feel bad about the actions that they did in their addiction, and so they want to do better for their community and make that change, try and right the wrong. Additionally, recovery housing, it can decrease rates of relapsing and substance use disorder, which ultimately is going to benefit your community or your backyard, you know? It's important to address the stigma and the misconceptions of SUD and recovery housing when you're trying to even have a conversation with landlords, because you want to create supportive and inclusive communities for all individuals. What drives drug dealing and crime? Well, when it comes to increase in crime, drug use, and violence, there are a few common factors: addiction, alcoholism, drugs of misuses, and substance use disorder. But since recovery residences have strict quality control and standards, there's no need to worry about alcohol, drug use, and crime. So the likelihood of crime, drug use, and violence occurring in a recovery residence is significantly reduced than other types of housing. But NIMBYism, it's everywhere. And it can be even stronger in a rural setting because everyone knows each other. So it's important to plan ahead and use the tools that will show you to make sure your project succeeds. Following best practice guidelines can help your project or recovery housing avoid, minimize, and successfully cope with these NIMBY issues. Planning for possible NIMBY issues when starting your path down the development of recovery housing is essential. You know, just utilizing the tools that you're going to learn in the next few slides will help you navigate these issues effectively. So if you aren't familiar with this, get it in your head. The Americans with Disabilities Act and the opioid crisis, combating discrimination against people in treatment or recovery. So yeah, mental note, take this one in. The U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has a law. It's called the Americans with Disabilities Act and the opioid crisis. It helps fight against discrimination towards people who are in treatment or recovery for opioid use disorder and are not using illegal drugs. So this law protects those who are taking prescribed medication for their OUD. And this is the law that you can use to combat NIMBY issues and ensure that residents can take their medication while living in recovery residences. But yeah, this is a big one. And when if someone says, oh, we can't have that here, well, boom, Americans with Disabilities Act and the opioid crisis. Hit them with that. Rural recovery pillars. Let's get into these. Number one, save lives. So set up programs that help save lives to improve the community and then give support for creating a recovery system. Number two, engage the community. Empower the community to work together. Create a recovery environment through shared understanding and leadership. Expand access to treatment. Help people get the care they need by reaching out to them and providing care in a way that feels personal. Screen and prevent substance use, you know, make it normal to talk about mental health and substance use, and make sure people are getting screened and supported if they are at risk. And support recovery. Provide programs that help with basic needs like housing, jobs, and activities that don't involve substance use. You know, help them build that healthy life in recovery. So we'll talk about some tips for success with overcoming challenges in the community. Prepare early. It's important to plan ahead and communicate with your community neighbors, and local officials before any opposition arises. This can help improve outcomes and build support for your project. You want to identify your key messages, and then you can use various media to share them. Social media, newspaper, blogs, podcasts. Consider working with local journalists to write articles about people in recovery and the benefits of your project, because this can help the community understand the importance of your project and reduce misinformation or conflict later on, because preparation is key to success. When facing concerns from the community about recovery housing, it's important to address the concerns in a genuine way. By doing so, any opposition that continues to persist, it's going to be identified as being unreasonable or unfair. It's important to explain the WAQRR standards and the social model of recovery to the community. And you can reassure the community that the recovery home has strict guidelines and structure in place to minimize any inappropriate resident behavior. If any such behavior does occur, encourage the community to bring it to the attention of you. Let us know. If someone's messing up, please tell us. I need to know. That way I can take care of it. It's important to work closely with allies and recovery advocates in order to understand the unique culture and history of the community that your recovery residence is going to be located. So this can include involving members of a local recovery community who can share their own experiences with recovery, address concerns, and ensure the success of recovery residents. It's important to explain how the residents will be a responsible owner and a good neighbor. This can be achieved by highlighting the structure and accountability provided within their residence, which all help minimize any inappropriate behavior. And it's also important to counter any accusations of drug dealing, violence, or crime by demonstrating the social model of recovery and the resident accountability, because that's what makes these recovery residences the least likely place to find drug dealing, violence, or crime in town. It's not going to happen. Not at that recovery residence, none of yours. Start early and start now. Identify and connect with the community leaders who can support your project. At the same time, you want to be aware of potential opponents and their values or their beliefs and their goals. But building relationships with trusted local leaders can prevent accusations that outsiders are taking advantage of the community. You want to make sure that local leaders are the face of your project to show that you're not an outsider, but someone who wants to help the community. To address NIMBY concerns, you can form an official NIMBY committee with your allies. This committee can help communicate. It keeps communication open, and then you guys can anticipate any local concerns. You can ask this organized committee to build a case for how the community can support us, develop and manage a strategy to involve locals in the planning process, identify and enlist community partners to address concerns that are being raised, and then just maintain a favorable profile in the community. It's clear that the more prepared that you are, the fewer surprises you're going to run into later. So keep track of good results with your facts and figures, but then also use videos and stories from local officials like your police officers or the mayor, judges, like especially judges in drug court, or even just healthcare officials, because those people are going to be big faces to show how effective your program is. Let's talk about public meetings. It's easier to keep things respectful on Zoom, but public meetings is another story, especially if you have someone who's like there to hijack the whole meeting and intimidate participants. That's not fun, but to prevent this, just make sure that there are clear rules at the beginning of the meeting and just ensure that everyone is following them. But creating recovery housing, it is a journey. And just like recovery, even if people who disagree with you, they seem illogical, it's important to treat them kindly. Try to understand their position, even if you don't agree with it. And even if you don't win today, you can learn from the experience and keep going. You know, it's always fun to address the elephant in the room. You can say something like this: I suspect, Mr. or Mrs. NIMBY, that you believe strongly in discipline, responsibility, and accountability. But there's none of that when you live on the streets or couch surf with others who are using drugs. Wouldn't it be better if there were a structured environment where they could have answers, they could answer to their peers who can't be fooled? Wouldn't that kind of accountability be better than the current permissiveness that extends taxpayer dollars on endless emergency room visits and jail stays? You know, just bring them the facts. But our final tip for success, and it's December, so frozen, let it go. When dealing with landlords in rural communities, it's you just need to be willing to let go of something. Even if you don't get everything you wanted, it's still considered a win when you are respectful and professional throughout your whole conversation or process, because others are going to see that you were reasonable and that they can, you know, rely on you in the future. And all for the tips. Those are all for the tips for success. But this is a nice little contact landlord form. Use this to collect information, the types of housing available, appliances, amenities. It's all here in a little spot to take notes. Made that for you guys. We also have a communication agreement. So this tool is just like a document that you can use to help landlords and tenants and case managers or housing advocates, help them communicate better, and then address problems before they become too big. So the idea with this is just that the tenant would fill it out and sign the agreement, and it includes common issues that the landlord may see as warning signs. But before using this agreement, it might be necessary to have the tenant sign a form giving permission to share this information. But just an idea to help communication. We also have here for you a sample lease. So you can download this. Do not use it word for word or anything like that. It's just a sample. So you can take a look at that. And then that is all that I have for you guys so far. So let's open it back up for questions. Someone had a question regarding transportation. I don't know if I've answered that enough. Let's see. You guys can go ahead and unmute yourselves as well if you just want to talk or introduce yourself to each other. Maybe take this time to get to know the other people who are here. They can, maybe they're landlords or maybe they're also in the same boat as you in the process. We also have Bree and Sarah, who are head of accreditation for WAQRR. So if you had any questions about that, they could answer those as well.
Definitely.
I'll just give you guys some time if you have any questions. Thank you, Leona. Thanks for joining us today. I guess I should just say thank you to everyone now while we wait in case people start hopping off. But I'll still be here for questions. If you guys want to unmute, you can go ahead and do that or put it in the chat. We're open for everything. But yeah, if we could just say thank you for your attention throughout this presentation. I hope you found it informative and useful. If you do have any feedback, please give it to me. I spent a lot of time on this, but I know it's not perfect, and I want feedback to improve it. Anything to help you guys get increased recovery residents in Washington State. But yeah, any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out. You know, dealing with landlords anywhere, but even in rural communities, it can be challenging. With the right tools and strategies, it's possible to build positive relationships and create successful outcomes. So we encourage you to use these resources provided and all these tips and techniques. Hey, thank you, Eric. You have a wonderful day. I appreciate the toolkit. Oh, thank you. Let's see. What time do we have? 11:02. Oh, I talked fast.
Wow. Okay, it happens.
No wonder my throat is dry.
All right. Well, we'll have this as a resource for you guys. Again, if you didn't actually take the time to open up that PDF toolkit, because there's so much information in there, and all of the links here that Blair was referencing. It's in the slideshow, but it's also in the toolkit as well. So we will send everyone who is here today, we'll send the recording as well as the full toolkit and the slides as well for you. And if you have any other like personalized questions relating to working with landlords or about the accreditation process, you can always reach out to us personally. We're glad to help. We've walked people through this process in their areas. So I'll enter my email and Sarah's email as well.
And then look forward to that email coming to you guys. If not later this evening, tomorrow, just depending on how quickly YouTube wants to deal with us and upload their videos. But we will have that sent out. There's going to be a little survey so you can give feedback and let us know if you liked or all your thoughts. Excited to hear it. And if you get a chance, join us tomorrow, same time, but we'll talk about community behavioral health agencies and how to either partner with them or become one, and also some FCS stuff. So join us there tomorrow. I'm ending.
All right, we'll go ahead and end. Thank you guys.
Thank you.